Okay, so this is a notice of demand for personal responsibility contract. Um, if you notice, this is going to the Attorney General. This is going to Ann Williamson, the Executive Director, the Deputy Director, and this girl right here, Lisa Stockdale, Recovery Services. Copies of this document have been sent to the following individuals with a certificate of service following Utah Rules of Civil Procedure 4D1J. Well, what is 4D1J? 4D1J, 4, process. Okay? Go down to 1, 4D1J, upon the state of Utah or its department or agency by delivering a copy of the summons and complaint to the Attorney General, which is, I got him, and any other person or agency required by statute to be served. So I'm covering my ass and I'm putting that on there because all of these people are getting served. And if you notice, certified mail, Sean Reyes, Silverberg, Mark, Lana, Lisa. Okay, so they all got a copy. And this is what we did. It says basically, now this is 10 pages long. And I don't care if you read this or not. What matters is the certified mail number showing you received it. A gentleman always gives notice. My suggestion is that you read it and follow my instructions, public servant. This is for your protection. Then I put in here my public filing of my UCC financing statement, my legal notice and demand, copyright notice, common law copyright, collateral, definitions, trusts, other legal documents have been filed with Salt Lake County Recorder's Office. There's those numbers again. I suggest you also read these. It's public record, has not been rebutted, therefore legally it is fact, it is truth. Any infringement will be met with litigation. Okay? So this is a notice of demand for personal responsibility contract. And let's go through this. So the Constitution of the United States of America talks about several separate jurisdictions. One, the common law, and two, a statutory contractual jurisdiction, which is colorable. Your administrative agencies do not operate in the common law. Therefore, you must be operating and enforcing some agreement, some contract between real living souls and your agency. And these agreements, contracts, must be provided to this man upon demand. The Fifth Amendment and Article 1, Section 7 of the Constitution for the State of Utah requires that Douglas Richard Mooney shall not be deprived of life, liberty, property unless by due process. The requirement of the Fifth Amendment, as well as Section 7, is also present in 45 CFR 303-101C2, which clearly requires that the due process rights of the parties involved must be protected. And 42 U.S.C. 666A5CI, which also requires that the state must afford due process safeguards. Right of occupation. The term liberty denotes not merely freedom from bodily restraint, but also the right of the individual to contract. It doesn't say the person, it says individual. That's real living souls. To engage in any of the common occupations of life, to acquire full, useful knowledge, to marry, to establish a home, to bring up children, to worship God according to the dictates of his own conscience. And the established doctrine is that this liberty may not be interfered with under the guise of protecting public interests by legislative action. Okay, so legislation, that all has to do with public. Okay, and when you start messing with private rights, you better be careful. Okay, and that's Meyer versus Nebraska. So, pursuant to the Federal Office of Child Support Enforcement Glossary of Common Child Support Terms, page 11, due process is the principle of fairness in legal proceedings, so that a person has a right to know what action is being taken and has an opportunity to be heard. Therefore, pursuant to the supreme law of the land, you are hereby ordered to provide the following. And since I'm private and you're public and you work for me, I am ordering you to do something. Under Title 42, United States Code, subsection 603, grants to states A5C, 3 I's, 3 big I's. It says very clearly you must have a contract, a commitment, and cooperation. You guys might want to look that up. So it says in the case of a non-custodial parent who becomes enrolled, just magically becomes enrolled in the Magic Project on or after November, the non-custodial parent is now in compliance with the terms of an oral or written personal responsibility contract entered into among the non-custodial parent, the entity, and the agency responsible for administering the state plan under Part D, which is ORS. And at a minimum, you need a commitment. I'll let you read all that. I'm going to pause. Okay? And a description of the services to be provided. So, now, pause. You are hereby ordered to produce and provide this man with a certified notarized copy of the contract for services that I signed and agreed to with Health and Human Services and specifically the Office of Recovery Services. You are hereby ordered to produce and provide this man with proof of a commitment. You are hereby ordered to produce and provide this man with proof of cooperation. You are hereby ordered to produce and provide this man with a certified notarized copy of the services to be provided form or application that this man signed and agreed to. Right? A description of the services to be provided. That would be nice. That would be really nice. Furthermore, Title 42, 4466A and 42 U.S.C. 666A15AI describes a procedure to ensure that if the non-custodial parent owes past due support, he will work or have a plan for payment. Really? So what procedure is this we're talking about? What support are you talking about? Support suggests that ORS, HHS, is supporting my child. Do you have any evidence my child is on public assistance or being supported by any state agency? No, you do not, because my child has always been supported by his mother and father. Therefore, you are hereby ordered to produce and provide this man with a certified notarized copy of this procedure I signed and agreed to and or agreed to cooperate with. You are hereby ordered to produce and provide documents showing this man is the non-custodial parent, the obligor, or the debtor, and produce and provide evidence I agreed to this statutory status or statutory label. You are hereby ordered to produce and provide a certified notarized copy of the enrollment form enrolling this man into the project. See 42603 above. You are hereby ordered to produce and provide this man with the terms and conditions of this alleged contract, which I signed, initialed, and agreed to. Pretty simple. You're enforcing something. Where is it? You are hereby ordered to produce and provide a certified notarized copy of the paternity establishment form, see section AA above, and produce and provide proof I agreed to cooperate with this establishment, paternity establishment, and proof you established paternity before you started eating out my substance in the form of garnishments and legal orders. You are hereby ordered to produce evidence Title 42 is positive law. And if you've seen my other videos, you know that Title 42 is not positive law. You are hereby ordered to produce and provide evidence this man lives in federal jurisdiction, territory, and you have the authority to enforce federal law in the Republic of Utah. So you're enforcing federal Title 42, federal code, federal statutes on the land known as Utah, and you're outside your jurisdiction. Oh, wait, unless you're in contract with the feds to get grant money. We'll see. In Blessing versus Freestone, the Supreme Court states clearly respondents have not identified with particularity the rights they claim, and the Ninth Circuit has not engaged in their requisite methodical inquiry. That court erred in apparently holding that individuals have an enforceable right to substantial compliance with Title 4D. The statutory substantial compliance requirement, see 42 U.S.C. 609A8, does not give rise to individual rights. Individual rights. It was not intended to benefit individual children and custodial parents. The Court of Appeals also erred in taking a blanket approach in determining whether Title 4D creates rights. It is readily apparent that many of the provisions of that multifaceted statutory scheme, including its substantial compliance standard and data processing, staffing, and organizational requirements, do not fit any of the traditional criteria for identifying statutory rights. In other words, if they're trying to say, well, you have an obligation, your son has a right, your daughter has a right to be supported, wrong answer, wrong. In other words, child support is set up to benefit the state treasury to receive federal grant money and has nothing to do with the child or parents. Child support does not create a right. Child support is inserted into divorce proceedings to help the state of Utah and its agencies get money from the feds, period. It has nothing to do with the kids. It has everything to do with the money. Therefore, you are hereby ordered to produce and provide detailed factual evidence that child support is a right and that my child is public property and not a private individual. You are hereby ordered to produce and provide detailed evidence your agency, by force, can steal my private property and use it to offset welfare expenditures and public assistance without my consent and without just compensation. In Troxel versus Granville, the court held the interest of parents in the care, custody, and control of their children is perhaps the oldest of the fundamental liberty interests recognized by this court. Unless the Third District Court and you, ORS, HHS, have evidence that this man is unfit, you violated my right to raise and care for my child as I see fit. And unless you have evidence of non-support, had a hearing, found me unfit, and found my child was being supported by your agency through housing, welfare, food stamps, some form of assistance, I would argue you're forced your agency upon me with no evidence of non-support, and that force would be slavery and involuntary servitude. You are hereby ordered to produce and provide evidence HHS, ORS, and the state of Utah have a controlling interest in my child. Health and Human Services and the Office of Recovery Services is in contract with the federal government to secure federal grants. A simple FOIL request gave me a treasure trove of contracts. I've showed you those. Showing how much you pay the state, how much you pay the courts, how much contract with the bar, how you educate lawyers, everything. The state of Utah, HHS, and ORS signs a contract with the federal government, receives incentive payments, and is regularly audited to see if they're in compliance with said contract. And guess what? Contract makes the law. No contract, no jurisdiction, no consent. You just lost immunity. Franconia and Associates. First held first. The requirement that government unequivocally waive its sovereignty and satisfied here, because once the United States waives immunity and does business with its citizens, it does so as a party never cloaked with immunity. Okay, Clearfield Trust, we've been over that before too. Law of contracts. Contract makes Law of contract requires signed written agreements and complete transparency. You do not have immunity because you are a corporation with customers. You charge a fee, you provide a service, you advertise, you have a mission statement. You don't have judicial immunity, nor do you have personal immunity. You operate in commerce, you take money, you are a for-profit corporation. And enforcement of these corporate statutes by you are unlawful actions being committed against the sovereign public, and you can be held personally liable for your actions. Emphasis added. Bond versus the United States. You cannot hide behind immunity because once you enter into contract, you are operating without that shield, and you better have a contract or you are operating under color of law. A government agency has no immunity because sovereignty resides in we the people. I'm talking to you, Ann, Mark, Lana, Lisa, and especially you, Sean Reyes, Attorney General. Your administrative agents do not have an oath, but you do, Sean, and I bind you to it. You are hereby ordered to answer and produce point by point these above items in affidavit form and swear under penalty of perjury your answers are true and correct, so help you God, and sign it. Silence can only be equated with fraud where there is a legal or moral duty to speak or where an inquiry left unanswered would be intentionally misleading. United States versus Tweel. United States versus Pruden. Carmen versus Bowden. You have 30 days to reply and produce the contract for services, or you are in default. Do not use the lie of we are just enforcing the court order, because you know damn well you pay the commissioners and judges to insert child support into everyone's life so you can create revenue and secure funding. And you know damn well that those agents operating in an administrative capacity are not acting judicial. Here are just a few cases from the Supreme Court to read in case you were thinking that I am joking. And we've been through all those before. And then you use the Attorney General to protect you. And Sean knows what is going on. He knows the truth, don't you, Sean? You are in contract with law enforcement, the courts, the AG, and all other agencies that have these data collection services. You are in contract with the banks. You are in contract with employers. And then you penalize them for questioning your colorable authority. You ruin men's lives, you give yourself a raise, and then you go on vacation. You have violated private rights, and you turn men into slaves. And whenever there is doubt between liberty and slavery, the decision must be in favor of liberty. We, the sovereign people, are not under the management or control of government agencies. To the contrary, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. And if you don't have consent, you don't have jurisdiction. Access of judicial authority. Acts and access of judicial authority constitutes misconduct, particularly where a judge deliberately disregards the requirements of fairness and due process. Society's commitment to institutional justice requires that judges be solicitous of the rights of persons who come before this court. Color of law, the appearance of semblance without the substance of legal right. Misuse of power possessed by virtue of state law and made possible only because wrongdoer is clothed with authority of state is action taken under color of state law. Judicial immunity, pause so you can read that. Okay? The foundation of our Constitution is the Declaration of Independence, which states whenever any form of government becomes destructive to our unalienable rights, such as life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and government by consent of the governed, it is the right of the people to remove from office by indictment or recall any elected, appointed, or hired servants who refuse to obey the law of the land, We the people have suffered a long train of abuses and usurpations by our government that perpetually pursued the same objective, which revealed a design to reduce the people to living under absolute despotism. It is therefore our right and our duty to indict such tyrants and try them for treason in a court of justice. You tyrants have infiltrated our government from the very inception of our nation. You have labored continually, deteriorating our union, taking the controls at every level of government. You have changed our federal city, built upon righteousness and governed by our Creator's law, into a corporate state of greed and corruption, controlled by foreign bankers and bar attorneys. You have brought us to the very brink of World War III. Tyrants in Congress have ignored and expunged the people's 6 directives. Number 1, instead of forming a more perfect union, they have given our federal city, post office, and coining of money to foreign bankers and bar attorneys. 2, instead of establishing justice, you have turned our courts into jurisdictions unknown, abolished habeas corpus, imposed an income tax that has destroyed the middle class, and turned all lawmaking over to the bar, who have abrogated the law of the land. Number 3, instead of ensuring domestic tranquility, you have abolished the militia and closed our armories. Number 4, instead of providing for the common defense, you have kept our armed forces in a state of perpetual war. Number 5, instead of promoting the general welfare, you have regulated commerce, and instead of making commerce regular, you impose unconstitutional taxes. Advancements in science, health, and technology have been hidden. Should have been a comma right there. In science, health, and technology have been hidden. Inventors have been stifled and murdered. 6, instead of securing the blessings of liberty, you have changed our republic first into a democracy and now into an oligarchy. There is a hidden hand that orchestrates events, our courts and our legislation, through the insidious bar. America is in shambles, and our elected servants walk as blind men. You tyrants within have denied me due process, abrogated the common law. You have created federal debtors' prisons. You rob our homes through non-judicial foreclosures. You steal our children in family court. You steal our parents and their estates in probate courts. You taint every grand jury and trial jury. You have created free speech zones. You have labeled patriots and sovereigns terrorists. You have destroyed our political process. You have stolen our free press. You have infringed upon our right to defend ourselves. You have destroyed our manufacturing base. You have chased out of America 88% of the top Fortune 500 companies. You have destroyed our economy. You have turned our dollar into debt. You have robbed our silver and gold. You have demoralized our children. You have opened our borders. You have used the BLM to terrorize American ranchers, miners, and loggers in order to sell off America's resources to foreign countries. You have sold our postal systems to foreign corporations. You have brokered our electric company sales to foreign corporations. You spy on we the people, intercepting and storing all of our private communications in case we become persons of interest. You take money, bribes from special interest groups, thereby selling your vote, and they're sold to the highest bidder. Usually on legislation that they don't even have the constitutional authority to pass in the first place, placing the will of the corporate world above the will of the people. acts of our servants are not to provide for special interest groups, not to divide us, not to establish statutory courts in jurisdictions unknown, not to establish laws that enslave the human spirit, not to keep us in perpetual war, not to demoralize us, not to destroy our prosperity, not to put us in harm's way, not to rob us of a proper education, and not to lead us as lambs to the slaughter. We, the people, did not consent to any legislated powers that legislate our behavior or let wrongdoers off on probation to kill again. Common law decrees that in order for there to be a crime, there must be an injured party, and it is we, the people, who are to decide the penalty. Common law decrees that for every injury there must be a remedy. Restitution is the remedy that has the power to restore both victim and wrongdoer. The covenant made between God and his people in 1776 empowered we, the people, to self-government. George Washington said the United States of America was built upon the fundamental maxims of true liberty, and that the basis of our political systems is the right of the people to make and to alter their constitutions of government. But the Constitution, which at any time exists, till changed by an explicit and authentic act of the whole people, is sacredly obligatory upon all. The very idea of the power and the right of the people to establish government presupposes the duty of every individual to obey the established government. By God, we are all things created that are in heaven and that are on earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things are created by him and for him, and he is before all things, and by him all things consist, and through his common law we, the people, are vested with unalienable rights. Governments are not. Your power and authority is defined in the Constitution that we, the people, ordained and established. And your color of law, unconstitutional regulation and infringement of my rights has come to an end. You will cease and desist. You will remove this case number noose from around my neck. You will close, dismiss, vacate, set aside, erase, do away with, delete, get rid of, and remove my Christian name from your computer files, form, registrations, applications, data collection systems, tracking systems, and from all your files. You will stop threatening me with unlawful garnishment, legal orders, and you will refund all my substance you have stolen in the last 15 years. You will not try to seize or lien my property or my funds or my car or my house or my child because you don't have a claim on me and you don't have any evidence of a contract I supposedly defaulted on. As Almighty God is my witness, I swear to you I will spend the rest of my days studying the law, filing lawsuits, writing motions, reading case law, and eventually I will survive the motion to dismiss these bar members are so fond of, and I will get my day in court, a real court of record, and by God and angels you will be judged. And that's all I have to say about that.